How did Dexter Morgan manipulate everyone who loved him? The answer lies in his chilling ability to turn trust into his deadliest weapon. Imagine this: the person you love the most, your sibling, your partner, your closest friend, has been using your love as a tool to hide their darkest secrets. But not just any secret, a horrifying truth that turns your world upside down. Dexter Morgan didn't just conceal who he was, he weaponized the trust of those closest to him. In this video, we'll dive into how Dexter manipulated every person who cared for him and turned their love into his deadliest tool. The story begins with Harry Morgan, a father trapped in an impossible dilemma: save his son or control the monster he might become. Imagine catching your child torturing animals. Their face isn't fearful or remorseful, it's cold, calculating. Most parents would panic, seeking therapy, intervention, or even prayer. But Harry Morgan didn't see a child in crisis. He saw a problem to solve. His solution was as radical as it was chilling: the code. Rooted in a principle he upheld as a cop: I only kill to save someone, otherwise it's murder. Harry designed the code to channel Dexter's violent urges toward a so-called greater good. On the surface, it was a moral framework, but beneath that veneer, it became the foundation for something far more darker. The code wasn't just about killing the right people. It was a survival manual. Harry taught Dexter how to hide in plain sight, to wear a flawless mask of normalcy, smile when they smile, show concern even when you feel nothing. By mirroring the world's emotions, Dexter learned to disappear into it. By the time he reached adulthood, Dexter was a master of deception. To his colleagues at Miami Metro, he was the friendly, reliable blood spatter analyst, the guy who cracked jokes at crime scenes and brought donuts to work. But behind the mask, he was a predator operating with surgical precision. But Harry's plan had unintended consequences. When he caught teenage Dexter dismembering an animal with disturbing precision, Harry finally saw the full weight of what he had unleashed. Overwhelmed by guilt and despair, Harry took his own life, leaving Dexter to navigate the code alone. And Dexter? He didn't just follow the code, he adapted it. What Harry intended as a means of control became a justification for Dexter's actions. The idea of purpose became malleable, twisted to suit his needs. Killing wasn't enough. It had to serve Dexter's narrative. But Dexter's true genius lay not in the act of killing, but in his ability to manipulate. Harry's teachings weren't just a moral compass, they were tools of deception. Dexter turned trust into a weapon, love into leverage, and human connection into a carefully constructed facade. The chilling irony? Harry had set out to protect both Dexter and the world from his darkness. Instead, he created a master manipulator so adept at deception that even those closest to Dexter couldn't see the truth. In Dexter's world, trust wasn't a gift. It was bait. Imagine growing up with someone who feels like your compass in a chaotic world. For Deborah Morgan, that person was Dexter, her protector, her guiding light, the one constant she could rely on. She worshipped him, the steady star she believed would never falter. But what happens when your guiding star hides a monster? That moment came crashing into Deb's life when she walked in on Dexter mid-kill. Her world didn't just crack, it shattered. The man she idolized, the brother she thought she knew, transformed into a stranger in an instant. Her steady anchor had become the storm that tore her world apart. Yet Dexter, ever the master manipulator, didn't crumble. Instead, he seized the moment and reframed it to his advantage. He didn't beg for forgiveness or try to explain. Instead, he rewrote the story entirely. "I do this to protect the innocent," he insisted. "This is justice, Deb." Desperate to make sense of the unthinkable, Deb clung to his words, convincing herself that her brother's darkness had a purpose. This was Dexter's genius. He didn't just hide his darkness, he weaponized Deb's love, pulling her into it. Slowly but surely, her black and white view of justice began to dissolve into murky shades of gray. She covered for him, lied for him, and crossed boundaries she had sworn never to breach. Each compromise pulled her further away from the principled, confident detective she once was. Deb's transformation was heartbreaking. The ambitious officer who once believed in absolute justice became a woman consumed by guilt and haunted by doubt. And yet, even as her own life unraveled, her love for Dexter remained unshaken. She couldn't abandon him, not even when it destroyed her. And Dexter, for all his claims of loving his sister, he allowed her to carry the crushing weight of his secrets, knowing full well it would break her. For Dexter, love wasn't sacred. It was just another tool. And Deb's unwavering devotion became the ultimate sacrifice in his relentless bid for survival. Rita Bennett was everything Dexter outwardly lacked: warmth, stability, and unconditional love. To the world, she was the light in his life, the woman who offered him redemption. But to Dexter, she wasn't salvation. She was a shield, a carefully constructed disguise that made him untouchable. Rita's love for Dexter was steadfast, but it blinded her to the truth. Every late-night disappearance was met with a ready excuse: work emergency. Every detached response was brushed off: I'm just tired. Dexter didn't cherish her love, he used it. Every excuse, every hollow reassurance was part of his act, and Rita, trusting and hopeful, fell for it all. But Rita wasn't naive. Over time, she began to notice the cracks in Dexter's mask, the growing emotional distance, the moments when he felt more like a stranger than her husband. Yet, rather than confront these signs, Rita clung to hope. Her desperate belief in the dream of a perfect family blinded her to the dangerous reality lurking beneath. She held on to the man she thought Dexter could be, even as the evidence told a different story, a hope that would ultimately cost her life. Rita's tragic death at the hands of the Trinity Killer was the devastating consequence of Dexter's double life. Trinity didn't target Rita because of who she was. He killed her because of who Dexter was. Dexter's relentless pursuit of Trinity, his inability to keep his darkness from consuming his family, dragged Rita into a danger she never saw coming. Even in her death, Dexter manipulated the narrative. Outwardly, he grieved, a devoted husband mourning an unthinkable loss. But beneath the surface, her death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a liberation. No more exhausting facades, no more need for a perfect alibi. With Rita gone, Dexter's mask of normalcy became one less burden to bear. Rita's love was pure, her trust unwavering. But that purity became her undoing. Dexter turned her belief in him into his greatest weapon, using her faith as a shield to protect himself. To the world, she was his light. To Dexter, she was a cover, one that shattered when he no longer needed it. In the end, the same qualities that made Rita a beacon of hope, her kindness, her love, her belief in second chances, were the very things that made her vulnerable to Dexter's darkness. She saw him as her savior, but he was the danger she never saw coming. Dexter's manipulative brilliance reached its most chilling depths with those who knew his darkest secret. These weren't ordinary relationships, they were alliances forged in shared darkness. But even with partners who saw through his facade, Dexter ensured he always held the upper hand, turning supposed equals into pawns. Because as Hannah McKay and Lumen Pierce would learn, knowing Dexter's secret didn't give them power. It only bound them tighter under his control. Take Hannah McKay. A killer in her own right, she wasn't repelled by Dexter's truth. She was drawn to it. To her, Dexter was a kindred spirit, someone who mirrored her own capacity for violence and moral ambiguity. In her mind, their bond was profound, something few could ever understand. But for Dexter, it was a golden opportunity. Dexter framed their relationship as one of mutual respect and understanding, a partnership of equals. But this was just another layer of manipulation. Beneath the surface, Dexter always maintained control. When Hannah confided in him, exposing her deepest fears and vulnerabilities, He didn't cherish her trust. He exploited it. Every tender moment was calculated, every act of intimacy another way to keep her tethered to him. Even when their connection appeared genuine, Dexter ensured that she never truly held power over him. Hannah believed their love transcended their darkness, but Dexter treated it as a convenient tool. He used her devotion to shield himself, persuading her to eliminate threats and cover his tracks. While she thought she was navigating their shared path, Dexter subtly steered every decision, ensuring that her dependence on him grew stronger with each move. Then there was Lumen Pierce. Broken by unimaginable trauma, Lumen had been kidnapped, tortured, and left for dead. When Dexter found her, she saw him as her savior, the only person willing to stand by her in her quest for vengeance. To Lumen, their partnership seemed noble. Two broken souls united in pursuit of justice. But for Dexter, it was far from altruistic. Lumen's pain provided Dexter with the perfect excuse to indulge his own darkness. Each time they hunted one of her tormentors, Dexter satisfied his violent urges under the guise of helping her heal. Lumen believed they were equals, but Dexter controlled every aspect of their alliance. He dictated when they acted, how they acted, and ensured that she never questioned his motives. She thought he was her guide, but Dexter's grip on their partnership was absolute. The unsettling truth about both Hannah and Lumen is this: even when they knew Dexter's true nature, they couldn't escape his manipulation. He turned their shared secrets into a leash, bending their will to serve his needs. Dexter wasn't their ally. He was their puppeteer, masterfully pulling the strings while maintaining the illusion of love and equality. You'd think knowing Dexter's secret would give you power over him, but in his relationships with Hannah and Lumen, it only bound them tighter. Trust, love, and shared understanding weren't barriers to Dexter's control. They were the very tools he used to tighten it. Dexter's ability to manipulate didn't stop at those who loved him. His genius extended to his enemies and even his friends, turning every interaction into part of his intricate web. No one, not his colleagues, not his adversaries, was immune to his control. Dexter didn't just destroy his enemies, he erased them. And his friends? He turned their trust into shields that protected his darkest secrets. Sergeant James Dokes was the one person who saw through Dexter's carefully crafted persona. From the start, Dokes knew something was wrong. His instincts, sharpened by years of law enforcement, told him that Dexter wasn't the quirky, harmless lab tech he pretended to be. Dokes was right, but his integrity came at a steep price. When Dokes got too close to the truth, Dexter didn't just evade his suspicions, he destroyed him. Framing Dokes as the Bay Harbor Butcher was a masterstroke of manipulation. Dexter planted evidence, spun lies, and exploited Dokes' reputation as a hothead to ensure the entire department turned against him. By the time Dexter was finished, Dokes was powerless, trapped in a narrative he couldn't escape. The man who had been the closest to unmasking Dexter was left with his life and career in ruins, while Dexter walked away unscathed. Maria Laguerta, the sharp and ambitious lieutenant, met a similarly devastating fate. When her suspicions about Dexter's identity as the Bay Harbor Butcher grew, she launched a relentless investigation that put everything on the line: her career, her reputation, and ultimately her life. But Laguerta underestimated Dexter's willingness to eliminate threats. He didn't just discredit her, he isolated her. Dexter manipulated her colleagues, planting seeds of doubt about her motives and painting her as desperate and untrustworthy. When she got too close to uncovering the truth, Dexter staged her death as a tragic accident, silencing her forever and ensuring no one would question the story he had spun. Even Dexter's friends weren't safe from his manipulations. Vince Masuka, Angel Batista, and even his protege Zach Hamilton were unwitting pawns in his game. Dexter's carefully cultivated image, a friendly, harmless coworker who brought donuts to the office and helped with cases, ensured that no one ever looked too closely. His charm disarmed those around him, making it easy for him to hide in plain sight. What makes Dexter's manipulation so chilling is the duality of his approach. He could destroy an adversary's life with the same precision he used to nurture a friendship. Every relationship, every interaction, was calculated to serve his ultimate goal, ensuring his survival while keeping his darkness hidden. Dexter didn't just deceive his enemies, he destroyed them. And for his friends, their trust became the perfect camouflage, a tool to shield his darkest secrets from ever coming to light. In the end, he left a trail of broken lives, all while maintaining the illusion of being a devoted father, brother, and co-worker. That duality, the ability to wield trust and fear with equal mastery, is what made Dexter Morgan truly dangerous. The most devastating chapter of Dexter's manipulative legacy was his relationship with his son, Harrison. For most, a child represents hope, a chance to step into the light and leave darkness behind. But for Dexter, even this sacred bond was corrupted. Harrison wasn't just his son, he became another piece in Dexter's twisted puzzle. Dexter proclaimed that his love for Harrison was pure, untainted by his darker impulses. But his actions painted a far different picture. Their home, filled with concealed weapons and unspoken truths, wasn't a haven. It was a ticking time bomb. Rather than shielding Harrison from the horrors of his double life, Dexter pulled him closer, disguising exposure as protection. As Harrison grew, Dexter began to see reflections of his own darkness in his son. But instead of confronting this realization with the fear or responsibility of a parent, Dexter saw it as validation. To him, Harrison's struggles weren't cries for help. They were proof that his legacy could live on. In Dexter's eyes, Harrison wasn't a child searching for stability. He was a successor in need of guidance. Dexter didn't just fail Harrison as a father, he actively manipulated his vulnerability. Every act of mentorship Dexter offered was a calculated move to bind Harrison to him, feeding the narrative that only Dexter could understand him. But here lies the cruel irony. Harrison wasn't Dexter. He wasn't a killer in the making. He was a traumatized boy desperate for love, not lessons in darkness. The ultimate betrayal came when Dexter involved Harrison in his own deadly schemes, claiming it was for his son's protection. But this was a lie Dexter told himself. He wasn't protecting Harrison. He was using him to justify his own existence, transferring the weight of his sins onto his son's shoulders. The line between guidance and control blurred until there was nothing left but manipulation. What makes Dexter's actions so chilling is his self-delusion. He truly believed he was acting out of love, that his warped mentorship was for Harrison's good. But Dexter's version of love was never about sacrifice. It was about control, camouflaged as care. Harrison didn't need guidance into darkness. He needed a father who could lead him toward light. Instead, Dexter dragged him further into the abyss. In the end, Dexter's relationship with Harrison wasn't just a failure of fatherhood. It was the culmination of his manipulative genius. He twisted the purest form of love, a child's unconditional trust, into another tool for his survival. And in doing so, Dexter sealed Harrison's fate as yet another victim of his darkness. So, how did Dexter manipulate everyone who loved him? The answer lies in his unparalleled ability to weaponize trust, affection, and loyalty. Dexter wasn't merely a serial killer, he was a master manipulator, someone who reshaped every relationship to serve his needs. Every bond he formed, every person he touched, became part of the intricate machine that fueled his dual existence. To Harry, he was the dutiful son who upheld the code. To Deb, he was the protective brother who could do no wrong. To Rita, he was the loving husband offering a second chance at happiness. And even to those who knew his secret, Hannah, Lumen, and ultimately Harrison, Dexter spun a narrative where he was indispensable, their savior in a world too cruel to understand them. But here's the bitter truth. Dexter didn't love as others do. His love was conditional, his relationships calculated. When someone's purpose was fulfilled, or when they threatened his existence, Dexter discarded them, leaving a trail of devastation behind. In the end, Dexter Morgan wasn't just a killer lurking in the shadows. He was a puppeteer, expertly pulling the strings of everyone around him. Love became his shield, loyalty his weapon, and trust the sharpest blade in his arsenal. And that, perhaps, was Dexter's greatest manipulation of all, convincing the world, and even himself, that he was the hero of his story. But for those who loved him, he was nothing short of their worst nightmare. If you enjoyed unraveling Dexter's dark world with us, make sure to like this video and hit subscribe so you don't miss out on more deep dives into your favorite characters and stories. Drop a comment below and let us know. Who do you think was Dexter's greatest victim? See you in the next one.